All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started, and as people come in, we can just kind of play it by ear. So, as you think about kind of like 2025, and really it's the holidays, because what we often say in like the November, December timeframe, it's not a great time to really beat yourself up about like lack of consistency if you're trying to lose weight, that if you didn't lose a pound a week or maybe a pound every other week, it's not really the time to beat yourself up because I think what Andy already said, it's nice to get back in the routine. And that's kind of the beauty of January, February, March. You kind of get into this like vacancy of holidays where like going in October and then it feels like every other week in November there's something. And then almost every week in December, there's something. And so to try to lose weight, maximize muscle growth, that kind of thing, it's just a lot harder during that time. And this is one of the reasons I am usually a big fan of New Year's resolutions. I'm not saying I'm good at New Year's resolutions and I keep them, but I do like some of the momentum that you get from the new year. And it's you have that excitement of, all right, I have a clean slate, hopefully January, February, March, April timeframe. And with that clean slate, I'd like to accomplish something. So I'd love to hear what are some of your guys' goals if you're showing up end of April, beginning of May, June, kind of wherever in the in the world, it starts to get warmer and you're like, I just want to rip off my shirt and I want to feel confident in that. Like, what does that look like for you guys? To go from, I guess, where you're at now to where you're like, is it just, I need to focus on more muscle or leaning out? What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, I can go ahead and start. I so I've started doing, like a two to three hundred calorie deficit the
Yeah.
last few weeks, experimenting with that and have, seeing some progress with that. And so for me, I guess my why, we've got an extended family vacation to Florida in March, and so I want to look good for that. And
Mhm.
so just between now and March, like you said, there's not a lot of obstacles in my way other than just having kids and getting sick, which is kind of the main obstacle I run into sometimes. But yeah, that's for me, just staying consistent and getting my workouts in and sticking to the nutrition. It seems like it's been working for me when I follow the plan.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really love the idea of a small calorie deficit because, I mean, as we've talked before, you're not looking to lose 30, 40, 50 pounds. It's not the big lift that you're trying to focus on. And what I've even started diving into a lot more research over the last kind of week or two into what does it take to kind of lose a little bit of fat while still getting stronger, still getting more muscle out there. And a lot of times it is in that 200 to 300 calorie deficit where I can lose some fat while still gaining muscle. And many times you have to have that combination of a small deficit with the right protein and fiber. So that's like the nutrition side and then having a really strong workout plan. So something that prioritizes like bigger movements. And it sounds like you basically have those two, and then just kind of doing that on repeat until March. It seems like that's definitely a great path for to reach those goals in March. And then once May, June comes, you kind of just build on that success, which is awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And what do you think that looks like for you?
Yeah, so I one goal I have a friend wedding that I'll be attending and being part of one of his groomsmen in August. So I definitely want to like get back in shape for that at least.
Mhm.
And along the way, I would like to also be running either a half or a full marathon, maybe a little before that. So I think that in terms of like what the daily steps would be, I think that one thing that I am struggling with is the nutrition. Like I think with running so much or hiking and jogging, like I always end up overeating after that.
Mhm.
And also I do travel a lot too, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to like I guess slow down on that as well so that I can give myself a chance to have some consistency. And yeah, I think trying to like as I was reflecting for this year, like yeah, my goals are to just be more consistent in like the day to day and not try to like go crazy, do extreme things. So maybe that might even mean not doing a marathon or because I would add more um
Yeah.
I guess uh different unknowns, right, to the equation. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
I think
it takes time too. I mean, if
yeah.
you're training for a marathon and you get to the point where it's 20 miles on a
Mm.
Saturday, that's
Yeah.
not a half an hour in and out workout.
No, it's not. No.
Yeah, and if you're
Yes.
traveling back and forth, there's that stress there. Like, granted the running you can do in both locations, but what does showing up as your best in August, what does that look and feel like? Is it just leaner, or is it leaner with more muscle, or is it like there's a lot of there, and
Yeah.
I think becoming a little bit clearer on that. I think this is
Mhm.
the thing that's helpful that we try to dive into with a lot of the one-on-one guys is the more we can make that vision of what is the ideal version of me that I want to eventually become, the path becomes pretty clear. And like you said, maybe the marathon's the right choice, maybe it's not,
Mhm.
but maybe that's also because you're not clear on that, it's rooted in I'm not sure what that August person looks like and feels
Mhm.
like.
Yeah. True.
So what do you think that may look like? I put you
Yeah.
on the
I mean,
spot.
yeah. I mean, I haven't signed up for the marathon or half marathons yet, but I have like contemplated. So maybe that could be something that I mean, I ran a half recently, so maybe that's something that I can put on the back burner and just focus on getting
Mhm.
leaner.
But is that something you want? Or do you
Yeah,
really like the idea of like I'm a marathoner? Like 'cause, I mean there is a little pride in that. Like I did half
yeah,
Ironman, I was like I just want to do it to say I'd done it.
yeah. I think there was at one point, but I guess since I actually did finish that
Mhm.
last year, like I don't know if I need to prove myself, I guess
Yeah.
this year. But I guess like I thought of it also as a way to like, burn off the extra calories, but I don't know, it didn't exactly work that way for me.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think that just having a more focused approach, and taking, I guess, the ego out of things, but committing to a process, I think is something that I need to work on without, the extra stuff. But yeah, I think for me, my goal is to become leaner overall. Um, and I guess have muscle for sure, but not crazy amount, I would say.
Yeah, if you're looking to get super jacked, I'm probably not your guy anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm okay
never
with
gonna
that.
be the bodybuilder.
Yeah.
But it's still like there is a kind of a lean aesthetic, and I think it's something
Mhm.
that's been a little bit more popular. Like you see these big, like gigantic
Yeah.
bodybuilders. Granted, they're all like on steroids, and I get that, but it's there's a lean version, what I typically call like the Marvel superhero version
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't what maybe I grew up with. And I feel like when I grew up, it was more like Brad Pitt and Fight Club. It was a much
Mm-hmm.
leaner version, like soccer player lean. So a
Yeah.
lot leaner version there. But I think through, and maybe it was because of superheroes or whatever, um, we're looking at that like ideal physique as something that has a little bit more muscle on it, which you've talked before about sometimes it's I run to burn off the calories. Well, you sometimes need the calories to help build the muscle, or it's the right type of calories. So, like dialing in the nutrition may be
Mm-hmm.
the heavy lift to focus on, and the marathon running might get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's trying to figure out what is that look and then dialing in on just that. Um, so it's helpful to really
Yeah.
figure out what that end goal is, because we can
Mm-hmm.
chase many different things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and I think you brought up a good point in that there are a lot of people like races, and I know I'm one of those people. I like we there's a half marathon at the end of February I'd like to do, but I also notice on some of my long runs I like to eat
Mm-hmm.
afterwards, and
Yeah.
it's
Same
so
here.
um, factoring that in your nutrition, I think is helpful too, and I think that's what a lot of people like to do too is find a race, find an end goal, but those end goals should shape like the training, the nutrition, the
Mm-hmm.
recovery is something that's going to be super important with that too, especially you traveling back and forth as much as what you do.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
So as you, and this is probably going to be for both of you, what are maybe checkpoints along the way that you feel like maybe it's every 30 days or every 6 weeks that could help you kind of designate I'm going in the right direction?
Yeah, I think, even like the weekly check-ins that that I have are really good for me, where it's like really focus on how I'm feeling, how, those tweaks make me feel each week that I'm doing, and how my body is responding to both the nutrition and the fitness. But yeah, I think, about once a month, I guess, better to do a more robust check-in or,
Mm-hmm.
kind of self-assessment, I guess. I've been doing my gym has like a free body scan. So like
Mhm.
that's kind of a nice check for me where
Yeah.
it's like I kind of did one a month and a half ago, did one here a week ago. So it's a good, that body fat, I guess, is what
Yeah.
I'm mainly looking at for.
And lean mass too. Because usually on those, they'll get a little printout where it's my body fat percentage. There's usually a lean mass number too, and seeing how that goes up and down. Granted, as you lose weight, you'll probably see that go down a little bit, but you may even see it go up a little bit as well as you create a little bit more mass. Strength numbers could be another way to assess progress too. Um, I know a lot of our plans are trying to utilize more percentage-based stuff. So you should be able to see a slow progression. I know it's kind of corny at the end of some of the workouts where it's like you lifted 27 hippos. Like I don't
Yeah.
need to, I'm trying to figure out how to turn that off, but I
I,
don't
honestly, I love that, Josh. It's a funny thing where I laugh, but it is something that I like joke with my girls, where it's like, "Hey, I
Yeah.
went to the gym and I lifted 20 kangaroos today," and they think
Yeah.
it's so cool.
Yeah. Maybe that's the problem. Yeah. I just need to talk to my son about it. Be like, hey, look what I did today. So Sam, what would as you kind of become a little bit clearer on that
Mm-hmm.
progression of where you want to go, what do you think would be good check-ins for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably thinking about, um, I mean, I think I should at least be weekly checking in with myself about, I mean, at least checking the scale, but also like my consistency, right? Like on a daily basis, I would say. I think in the app there is like a checklist of like, the daily to-dos. And I think that if I have to be honest with that, I think, yeah, I need to be more honest with that on how I'm doing with that on myself. Um, I think, um, yeah, monthly basis, I guess or maybe even bi-weekly, like if the weight is not going down, then I definitely have to like tweak something a little, either, you know, to be on more of a serious calorie deficit or maybe have more steps in. I don't know how you tweak. Yeah. But yeah, I think just being more clear on those things or being
Yeah.
honest with myself.
Yeah, and I think that's really what the check-ins try to. It is a little bit of a different style of check-in that we do, especially with the one-on-ones. I think we give a preview in the non-one-on-one kind of
Hmm.
program what a check-in would be. Um, but with that, it'll ask like your weight, it'll ask new nutrition, how you like consistency of nutrition, consistency of workouts. But what I always find to be the best return on like I always love to hear everyone's perspective is like the mental state. What do you think are the best next steps? Because usually as you start listing out a lot of the things in those check-ins, it becomes pretty clear, well, I can't get too upset with myself because I didn't hit this metric and that didn't result in that metric. Or I've seen a lot of stress this week. So a lot of stress this week often resulted in this one thing. And that's where we see some of the week to week check-ins kind of dovetail into each other where I have a really stressful week this week. And then the next week I see my nutrition wasn't that great or my workout wasn't that great. So we start
Hmm.
seeing some of these leading indicators where we could be in trouble later on. And so
Hmm.
I think it's good to like those weekly check-ins. Something we always try to look at is if you are trying to lose weight and you don't lose weight, let's say in a certain week, that's usually not a problem because like, I may drink a little bit more water today and I may be a pound or two heavier tomorrow. Like
Hmm.
the weight fluctuates so much each day. But if your check-in, especially if you're weighing yourself every day and you're kind of just taking an average, but if week one to week two, you're not losing weight, and then week two to week three, you're not losing weight. And if that third week you're still not losing weight, that is one of those I need to have a little bit more of a serious conversation of what's going on.
Hmm.
And if you're already in that, let's say 8,000 step range, more steps isn't the answer
Hmm.
because like there's diminishing returns, I feel like, with
Yeah.
a lot of health everything.
Hmm.
Even if you have too many vegetables, at a certain point, you're over your calories. So even with steps, I mean, you can walk for an hour, and it's maybe a couple hundred calories. I have a banana and I pretty much ruined that deficit by half. So in the end, it's weight loss is always a nutrition thing
Hmm.
every single time. So just continually trying to see what is actually going on. And Andy, that kind of goes into a little bit of yours and that 200, 300 calorie deficit. Sometimes that's hard to maintain just because there's so much error in the tracking process.
Totally. Yeah, and I've actually been surprised over, the last week or so, like how I haven't been starving. Like, I
Mhm.
haven't been really noticed that I'm that hungry, like in a 300-ish calorie deficit.
Mhm.
And I think it's just a lot of I've been trying to eat a lot more whole foods and, those big lunches or dinners that are nutrient dense whole foods, I think just help keep me fuller longer. But yeah, um, I've actually been surprised that it's gone well, that I
Yeah,
haven't
and
been super hungry.
really with a 200 to 300 calorie deficit, most people can sustain that for quite a while. And it's weeks and months. It's pretty much what I always think, like the bigger the deficit, the shorter the duration. So if you were at like 1,000 calorie deficit, I'd be calling you up on like day 10 and be like, how much do you hate your life right now? And you'd be like, I very much so. I cannot do this anymore. Because sometimes it's that's just such a big deficit where 2 weeks in, and some people can do it. I'm not that person, but some people can do it for a long duration of time, and you can lose weight really quickly, and keep it off. There's studies that show whether it's fat loss quickly or fat loss slowly, you can sustain it like the statistically sustain it the bat or the same. Granted, 90% of diets still fail, so we're just talking about that 10%. But I do love the strategy of more whole, minimally processed foods, mainly because it just makes your plate feel bigger. It just looks bigger. And there's so much to like just having a bigger plate, which is helpful.
Yeah, totally. And just like some of those minor switches that we've noticed, like, switching from eggs in the morning to egg whites and
Yeah.
like adding ground turkey in with that, like getting a lot of protein, but really not a lot of calories.
Yeah. And especially in that 200 to 300 calorie range, 1 to 2 switches that are hardly noticeable, you can largely just eat the same thing you've been eating, and
Hmm.
you don't really notice that much of a change. Granted, with that, you're not losing a pound a week. You're kind of losing a pound every 2 to 3 weeks because it is a lot slower progress. But in your case, that's not necessarily the goal is a bunch of weight loss. It's just I'm trying to lose body fat while still trying to build as much muscle as I can in that process. So yeah, it's really
Yeah. Yeah, and I think another thing that's helped me is just weighing myself every day. Probably
Mhm.
like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think you brought it up in one of our check-ins, like, hey, you've kind of plateaued at like this weight for, 3 to 4 weeks now. And I'm like, yeah, I've really just been weighing myself like twice a week. So like
Mhm.
weighing myself every day and actually tracking that has helped me just track that more scientifically, I guess, and
Yeah,
see
it
that.
is helpful. The reason I like it is more from a mind standpoint than a body standpoint, because as you weigh yourself each morning, it's that number that's on the scale. You think, all right, I have a goal. It's that reminder of the goal to, it's like one of the reasons we like working out in the morning. It's, I'm checking off the thing that I'm a healthy person. I identify as a healthy person. So you reinforce that as the day progresses, or I'm trying to lose weight. So it kind of sets that tone for the day in the morning. So it's very helpful, and then also you don't freak out as much when the scale doesn't move because you're like, I weighed 4 pounds more yesterday than I did today. And that's just the way I had maybe some pizza or something yesterday, and I'm holding on to a lot more water. So I had like a high sodium day. So I'm holding on to a lot more water. So you just start seeing those fluctuations. You don't worry about it as much. Um,
Yeah, I was actually very surprised at how much my weight fluctuated. Like, yeah, to your point, we, went out for New Year's Eve, like had a couple beers, had,
yeah.
some buffalo chicken dip and just different things that we normally don't eat. And it's like, oh, I was up like 3 pounds the next morning.
Yeah. And some of it is still just food that's just in there still.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
So yeah, and you're amazed when you go to the bathroom. You're like, all that was inside me. Wow, that was pounds of food. So yeah, there's always like little things you can do. Granted, the bigger the deficit, like the more switches and things that have to change. And same, I think we've talked about before, because you're in two different locations. Sometimes it's hard to be consistent with that nutrition. Have you thought about different ways to tackle that?
Yeah, I think since our last conversation, like considered making a like list, like a grocery list, so that when I'm coming into another location, like I'll have that list already ready to go. And like the first thing I do when I hit the ground is go to the grocery and pick up these things or have someone purchase them before I get there
Hmm.
for me, so that I don't have to, like, that's one less thing to think about when I get there, or one less temptation. Because, usually after travel, like, you do get hungry, or the airport food seems easy to get, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, I think just kind of like trying to make more intentional um, and intuitive practices, like um, to give yourself a chance, even
Yeah.
in the chaos. That's-
Yeah, and I think that actually really parallels well with one of the comments about a topic to cover, is what to do when you're out all day and you just don't have the ability to have a kind of a snack handy. So what do you do when you're like your only option is McDonald's or something like that? And I
Mhm,
think you brought up a great point in that, well, you could have called ahead and had the meals already delivered at your house
mhm,
where you don't have that situation, where you don't have the situation where there is an issue at where you just have to grab something because you've
mhm,
already kind of planned ahead. And it's usually that planning ahead limits the like reaction to I
mhm,
McDonald's is the only choice. Because many times if McDonald's is the only choice or whatever it is, I just use McDonald's as an example,
mhm,
it's fine. It's completely fine because it most of the time it's the that's one day out of the other 364 days. If you're planning ahead for the other days, that one day is really not going to matter. And it kind of goes back into like November and December being a little bit crazy, where that's just 1 to 2 months out of the other 10. If you can dial it in for the other 10 months, the 2 months won't matter. Um,
mhm,
but it's thinking about how can I look into the future if I have a hectic day, what does that look like in terms of nutrition and planning that kind of thing out? And if life just becomes hectic, be okay because it's just one meal or it's just one thing.
mhm,
I know we talk a lot with some of our clients about they travel so much or they're doing so many different things where it's hard to plan ahead. Well, I always feel like if you zoom out enough, there's consistency. There's a pattern that is created. So if when you're in the weeds, it does often feel like I just don't have many choices, but it's often stress talking and not really looking really at the forest because you're staring at the trees or wherever that saying goes.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, I do notice even like when I do travel, like there's a pattern of what I eat, and even if it's not always the best food, like there is a pattern that I'm
Mhm.
on auto drive following. So if I can just take a step back and maybe re-evaluate that pattern that I'm
Mhm.
on auto drive with, like I could perhaps like start a new way of dealing with travel eating or things like that.
Yeah, and I think that's important that you're looking at the routine and kind of reassessing like how can I create a new routine?
Hmm.
That's what kind of the buying ahead is doing is I'm trying to reestablish something new.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the things that I always try to think about with that is we often go to the extremes. Either I didn't have a routine and then I revert to, okay, well, I'm going to plan out my meals Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, breakfast, lunch, dinner. And then by about Wednesday afternoon, you're like, I can't eat this anymore and I need a break. So planning for breaks and planning for like I'm gonna get sick of this at some point is also very helpful. I mean, that's the essence of pretty healthy family right there. Is like we're running a challenge now, and it's like 10 things that would equate to a super healthy life. But the goal is out of the 42 days you're in this challenge, just hit 33 for each one. Like if it, let's say it's water, I'm just trying to 33 out of the 42 days, I need to drink enough water. You do that with all those 10, you're going to be extremely healthy. You're going to lose fat, you're going to gain muscle, you're going to do all the things that you need to like accomplish. And it won't be as stressful because it's only 80% of the time, which allows you a couple breaks maybe each week or
Mm,
especially every other week. So,
yeah.
so what kind of questions do you guys have? Kind of looking at where you're at, where you want to go. Um,
Yeah, nothing really on the tip of my tongue today.
yeah.
This has been helpful.
Yeah, I think we have a
Mhm.
meeting coming up to
Yeah.
dive into it. Yeah.
One thing I had question with, and I know I'm not in the one-on-one, and
Yeah.
I'm newer to this process. Like I was just like going through the app, and I was looking at some of the, I guess, the nutrition and the recipes, and I was just wondering, like, what do you guys use for cooking oil? Like, and is that even like something that I should even be worrying about? Because I feel like I've had other trainers who like are very particular about the type of cooking oil or
Yeah,
um
that's a great question. So with like the meal plans, they don't factor that in. But
mhm,
if you're trying to track everything in a MyFitnessPal, you're definitely going to track every that you have to track that in.
mhm.
So in our house, I can say what we do in our house. I use just butter,
Oh wow.
which
Okay.
I have to factor that in that if I want scrambled eggs, there's probably a small pat of butter that has to go on that pan to make sure that I'm counting for those calories. And so ours is like it's a ghee butter.
Okay.
And sometimes we'll use like olive oil or things like that. This is prior to getting married, where she kind of just got rid of a lot of things. I would just use like a Pam spray or like a nonstick spray. That
Mhm.
usually worked for me, and it's generally pretty low in calorie.
Yeah.
So those things often work. The reason we tend to use butter is more of the like the chemicals behind it.
Yeah.
Um, that sometimes some of those sprays, the reason they are nonstick is because there's some junk in it. Um,
Mhm.
However, I will say in terms of risk reward, I don't think that's probably the biggest concern. If, let's say, we need to lose 20 pounds, the cooking spray is probably not the problem at this time.
Yeah.
It's let's lose 20 pounds first. And that's like, it's kind of like supplements. It's a great
Mhm.
like segue or like great analogy
Mhm.
with supplements. Um, like creatine, protein powder, like magnesium, all these things are great supplements. It's still 1% of the overall things that you need to do to be super healthy.
Mhm.
There's no supplement that's a magic pill to get you super strong. Even if you took steroids, you still need to lift weights and you still
Yeah.
need to eat healthy. Like that's still 99% of everything. So from a cooking oil standpoint, I would use something you feel confident in that's like healthy for you.
Mhm.
And know that there's just trade-offs with everything. Like we use butter, it's going to be high in fat. Like I'm adding 50 calories for zero reason, but it's the only thing we have in the house.
Okay.
And I'm too lazy to go grocery shopping on my own.
Fair. Thanks.
So, yeah. Anything else?
I think that's it
All
for
right.
now.
If you guys have anything, make sure you just kind of shoot some messages in the community forum or just message me. I'm on the other end. And yeah, we'll leave it there. Have a great 2025.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Josh.
See ya.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.